Welcome to At Forest Edge, a podcast for the woman who asks the deeper questions, who finds God in the ancient stories, the forgotten myths, and the hard places of her own life. I'm Rihanna Tilley, a watercolor artist, a storyteller, and a woman who has stood at the edge of the dark wood and found that the light was there all along. Pull up a chair. Let's follow this thread together. I want you to think about something you were certain was going to destroy you. Not something that actually did. Something you spent nights awake rehearsing. Something that lived in the back of your chest, like a stone, heavy and unmoving. For days or weeks or maybe longer, something you turned over and over in your mind, building the worst version of it, furnishing it with details, adding consequences to consequences until the imagined thing had grown so large it blocked out the actual sky. Now, I want you to think about where that thing is today. For most of us, if we are honest, the answer is that it either never arrived at all, or it arrived in a form so different from what we had constructed that the version we feared and the version we actually faced were barely recognizable as the same thing. And we survived it. We are here. We are listening to a podcast on an ordinary day, which means the catastrophe we were rehearsing did not, in fact, become the final chapter. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday, and you are still standing in it. I want to be clear that I am not here to make anxiety sound simple. It is not simple. For some of us, it is woven into the fabric of how we experience the world, a nervous system that has been trained by hard seasons to stay alert, to scan the horizon, to prepare for impact even when the sky is perfectly clear. That is not weakness. That is survival instinct. That is a body that learned to protect itself and has not yet been given the permission to rest. I know what it is to live ahead of myself. To be physically present in an ordinary moment while my mind is already 3 weeks forward, stress testing every possible outcome, preparing for losses that have not happened yet and may never happen at all. I know the exhaustion of that, the way it steals the present moment, the actual, real, right now moment, and replaces it with a future that exists only in the imagination. I will give you a small and ordinary example from my own life because I think the small and ordinary ones are sometimes the most honest. I manage our household finances, and at the end of every month, I sit down with the numbers, income on one side, expenses on the other, and every month, without fail, somewhere in that last week before the final paycheck arrives, the familiar worry settles in. What if this is the month it doesn't work? What if I've missed something? What if it isn't enough? I want you to know that feeding a family of 7 on real food, actual ingredients, the kind you assemble into a meal rather than unwrap, it's not a small line item. It would make a grown man squirm. And yet every last Friday of the month, I sit down, list everything out, count every cost, compare it to what came in, and I break down in tears. Not because it was a disaster, because every penny is accounted for. Somehow, impossibly, it is almost a perfect match. Not a dramatic surplus, not a crushing deficit. Provision, exact, careful, personal provision. I know it had to be him. The math doesn't explain itself. And every single time, I thank God for it. And every time I wonder why I worried. And then next month, I worry again. And he provides again. And I think that is actually the most honest testimony I have. Not that I conquered anxiety, but that I keep bringing it to the last Friday and he keeps meeting me there. What I have learned, slowly, imperfectly, and not without backsliding, is that anxiety is almost always a story about the future. And the future, by its nature, has not happened yet. We are spending real, present tense energy on a territory that does not yet exist. And most of the time, when we finally arrive at the place we feared, we find it is not what we built. want to talk about something I love deeply, and I hope you will follow me here because I think it illuminates something true. There is a pattern in the great stories, the ones that have survived centuries because they carry something real inside them. And the pattern is this: the hero is never ready. Frodo Baggins did not want to leave the Shire. He was a small, comfort-loving hobbit who enjoyed his armchair and his meals and his predictable rhythm of Bag End. When Gandalf told him the ring had to leave, Frodo's first instinct was to give it to someone else, anyone else. He said plainly that he was not the right one for this, that he did not know the way, that he was not brave or strong or equipped for what lay ahead. He was right. He wasn't. Not yet. But here's what Tolkien understood about courage that I think we have largely forgotten. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is not the confidence of someone who has already seen the outcome and knows they will survive. Courage is the small figure standing at the edge of the map, spyglass raised, looking toward the mountains marked with dragons and monsters and all the things that have never been faced before, and taking one step forward anyway. The fairy tales know this too. The youngest son in every folk story is always the one nobody expected, the one who seemed least prepared, least impressive, least likely to succeed. And he's always the one who makes it, not because he was secretly powerful all along, but because he walked toward the thing that frightened him. And the walking itself made him who he needed to be. The map always looks more terrifying than the territory. The dragon on the horizon is almost always smaller up close or turns out to be something else entirely. Or you discover on the road toward it that you were given exactly the provisions you needed for exactly this journey, and you simply could not see them from where you started. There's a film that came out earlier this year. It's called Project Hail Mary, and if you have not seen it yet, I am not going to spoil a single thing. I'm just going to tell you, go watch it with someone you love. But I will say this much. It is the story of an ordinary, reluctant man who wakes up inside the worst possible scenario with no memory of how he got there and no certainty of how it ends. And watching him face the impossible one small problem at a time with nothing but his own resourcefulness and the most unexpected companionship. I sat in my father-in-law's living room next to my husband and thought, that is exactly it. That is what survival mode actually looks like from the inside. Not a hero who was ready, just a person who kept going. And I think God smiled when that story was written because it is older than science fiction. It is as old as every reluctant prophet, every frightened disciple, every woman who pushed her children on the swings and prayed the wordless kind of prayer. You are already further into your story than you think. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, still breathing, still putting one foot in front of the other means the road has been holding you all along, even when you were certain it would give way. Jesus said something about worry that I want to sit with because I think we often read it as a gentle suggestion when it was actually a radical reorientation of how to be human. Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. The Greek word translated here as worry is merimnaó, and it is worth knowing what it actually means beneath the surface of the English. Merimnaó, to be anxious, to be pulled in different directions, to have a divided mind. From merizo, to divide, to separate. Worry is literally the experience of being split. Part of you here, part of you already in the feared future. A mind that cannot be fully present because it is always somewhere else. A divided mind. That is what worry does. It splits you. Part of you is here in the real moment with your real children or your real cup of tea or your real ordinary Tuesday. And part of you is already 3 weeks ahead, living in a catastrophe that has not happened and may never happen, spending real emotional currency on an imaginary future. Jesus was not saying, do not feel afraid. He was not dismissing the real weight of uncertainty. He was saying, do not divide yourself. Do not spend today in tomorrow. Come back. Be here. This moment, this day, this breath. This is where I am. And this is where you will find what you need. Each day has enough trouble of its own, which also means each day has enough grace of its own. The provision arrives with the day. It does not arrive 3 weeks early for the days you haven't lived yet. This is why worry exhausts us so completely. We are trying to carry grace for days that have not come, and grace was never meant to be stored. It is a daily bread kind of gift. It arrives when you arrive, not before. There's a companion verse in 1 Peter 5:7 that I want to bring alongside Matthew 6, because together they do something neither does alone. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Cast. It is an active word, not set down gently, not hand over carefully. Cast, the way you throw something, the way a fisherman sends a line out over the water with intention and release. You are not meant to hold it while you hand it over. You are meant to let it go through the air and trust that he catches it. And the reason you can cast it, the reason the release is possible, is in the second half of the verse. Not because he is powerful enough to handle it, though he is. Not because he has a plan, though he does. But because he cares for you. The casting is made possible by the caring. You can release what you are white-knuckling only when you truly believe it is landing in the hands that are tender toward you. This is not about carrying nothing. There are real burdens that we are meant to carry. Responsibilities, relationships, the work of showing up faithfully to our own lives. But anxiety about the future is not one of them. This is not your assigned weight. That is a bag you picked up that was never labeled with your name. You were made to carry today, just today, with the grace that arrives with it, the provision that meets you at the door of each morning, the strength that is new every single day according to Lamentations 3:23. His mercies are new every morning, not recycled from yesterday, not preloaded for next week, new this morning for today. I painted this one for a young man, but I knew I also needed it on my wall. Deep textured blue mountains, the kind that feel ancient and immovable. A golden swirling sky, the kind that Van Gogh understood, where the atmosphere itself seems alive and moving and lit from somewhere beyond what the eye can explain. And in the foreground, a small silhouette. A boy in a cape, holding a spyglass, looking toward the horizon. He is looking toward the future, toward the mountains, toward whatever is out there beyond the edge of what he can see. And the spyglass tells you everything. He is not looking away in fear. He is looking toward it with curiosity, with the particular courage of someone who has decided that what is ahead is worth examining rather than fleeing. And written across the painting in the words that have become an entire way of understanding time for me. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. You made it here to this ordinary, imperfect, real today. The tomorrow you lost sleep over is now the ground beneath your feet, and you are standing on it, which means the tomorrow you are losing sleep over now will one day be the same ground beneath your feet, held, navigable, survivable. The boy with the spyglass does not know what the mountains hold, but he is looking anyway. And the golden sky behind him is not the sky of a story ending in disaster. It is the sky of a story just beginning to open. This painting is available as a fine art print on my website at forestedge.com. If you need that reminder on your wall, if you need to look up from your desk or your kitchen or your bedside table and remember that you are already standing in the tomorrow you once feared, I would love for you to have it. Most monsters never arrive. I want to say that gently because I know that some of them do. I am not here to tell you that fear is always irrational, or that everything works out neatly, or that faith is a shield against difficulty. It is not. The rain falls on everyone. But I want to ask you something. If you were to look back over the landscape of your worries, the ones that kept you up, the ones that followed you into the shower and sat with you at the dinner table and whispered in the quiet before sleep. How many of them arrived exactly as you had built them? How many of the catastrophes you constructed in your imagination actually became the story? And the ones that did come, did you survive them? Are you here? You are here, which means one of two things is true. Either the thing you feared never came, or it came and you were given exactly what you needed to walk through it, exactly when you needed it. The grace that arrived with the day, the provision that met you at the door of the hardest morning, the strength that was new when you needed it to be. You do not have to carry tomorrow today. You are not built for that weight, and it was never assigned to you. Cast it. Release it through the air with intention. Trust that it lands in hands that are tender towards you because He cares for you. Not in a distant, managing sort of way, in the close, personal, He knows your name sort of way. Take up today, just today, with its own grace, its own provision, its own measure of strength. Look toward the mountains with your spyglass if you need to. Curiosity is not the same as dread. But come back. Be here. The golden sky is behind you right now, not only in the future, and you are already standing in the tomorrow you once feared would undo you. You made it here, and you will make it to the next tomorrow too. Thank you for being here at Forest's Edge with me today. If this episode found you in a season of worry, if you have been living ahead of yourself, exhausted by a future that hasn't arrived yet, I hope something today gave you permission to come back to the present moment and set a little of that weight down. If you know someone who's a worrier, a planner, a woman who carries too much too far in advance, will you share this episode with her? Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is hand someone a thing that says, you do not have to carry that yet. And maybe not at all. Until next time, put down the weight of tomorrow. Today has everything you need. Thanks for sitting with me a while at the edge of the forest. If today's episode stirred something in you, come find me at forestsedge.com. That's where you'll find my art, my book, The Happy Little Sunflower, Finding Hope in the Valley, my newsletter, and a way to reach me directly. I'd love to hear what's on your heart. Until next time, may you keep walking toward the light even when the path is dark.